Minister Ararat Mirzoyan, welcome to Deutsche Welle.
Thank you for the invitation.
Let's start with the initialing of what could be, I think, broadly called the Armenia and Azerbaijan peace process. It was in August in Washington. So how do the next steps look, looking from Yerevan?
Well, first of all, on the 8th of August this year, we had the trilateral summit with participation of Prime Minister of Republic of Armenia, President of Azerbaijan, and also President Trump of the United States in the White House by mediation, or call it facilitation, or witnessing by President Trump. So first of all, a declaration was signed by three leaders, and in this declaration they welcomed the initialing of the peace agreement, which was initialed by the foreign ministers. They agreed upon several fundamental principles, like time and again reciprocal acknowledgement of territorial integrity, inviolability of borders, and also the leaders agreed over the longly negotiated connectivity issue. So you know that unblocking the transport communications, transit infrastructure is being discussed between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So in this declaration, they agreed upon on the main fundamental principles under which, or in frames of which, this unblocking should take place. This is crucial, this is very important, one of the most important aspects of the whole negotiation process and the deal. And here as well, they acknowledge that the infrastructure which is going to be unblocked should remain under or be operated according to territorial integrity, inviolability of the borders, and also sovereignty, and which is very important, national jurisdiction of the countries, which means that the infrastructure on the Armenian soil, Armenian territory, should function according or under our national jurisdiction, and respectively the Azerbaijan infrastructure. This sounds natural, but we have been negotiating on this very simple but principal issue for months and years. And also the arrangements should be reciprocal. So this is a very important accomplishment, quite a milestone. And as I said, we'll also initialed the peace treaty. Again, a very, very important text, which was agreed in March, but all the efforts to somehow sign it, initial it, were in vain this month. So in August we did it. Next step, you're asking. Next step is naturally two things: signing the peace treaty, which was initial, and also already agreeing the concrete technical modalities, technical solutions of this connectivity issue, and then start constructions, etc., etc. But in parallel, there are also ongoing processes which take place on the ground. Like we have started the delimitation of the border, interstate border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We have already delimited 12 kilometers of our border. This is unprecedented thing. We also have mutual understanding how this process should continue. We agreed upon principles. We even signed the treaty, and it was ratified, the reglement, the regulation of the joint work of two state border commissions. So it is happening.
So what is, to give it a rough sort of outline, what is the time frame for all that? Because establishing, delimiting all borders, basically signing the peace treaty, establishing official diplomatic relations and embassies and so forth. It takes time. On the other hand, all these things sort of are interconnected. So what do you think is the time frame?
Indeed, everything is interconnected, but also I should state that it's not easy. If it was easy, it would have been done long ago. So I suppose the delimitation will continue with the same pace. Maybe the works could be even intensified. As for connectivity, we should, as I said, agree upon the modalities. But we, here I mean Armenia and United States, because we agreed that the part which would be in Armenia, on Armenian territory,
I'm going to ask about that. Yes,
this should be constructed and then functioned, maintained by a consortium, an American-Armenian consortium, a company, which can hire a third company, for instance, to implement the daily duties. So for connectivity issue, the next step is agreeing upon these modalities and then starting the construction of missing part of railways, for instance. It can be a pipeline, then we should start the works from zero. For the peace treaty, the next step is signing, but here there is a nuance. The Azerbaijani side, fortunately, makes a precondition for signing the peace treaty. They think we don't share this, we have counter arguments, but they think, well, this is their narrative, that there is a problem in our constitution. So they want us to amend the constitution. This is their condition, which we are not, we don't agree to do. Well, we have an agenda of amending constitution or adopting a new constitution. We declared political statement.
Let's say Armenian lands outside of the accepted borders, right? Let's say Karabakh and so forth, right?
That is what is behind this story, but there is nothing in Armenian constitution showing that there is any territorial claim against Azerbaijan. I can elaborate on this a little bit more if you want. So we do have in our constitution reference to our Declaration of Independence, but it is like based upon Declaration of Independence, and then the main body of constitution. So this, and according to our legislation, only those provisions of any legal act or Declaration of Independence have imperative legal force, that only those that are literally quoted in the constitution. So we don't have any quotation. There is no problem. Nevertheless, the Azerbaijani side sees and brings this condition. We don't agree on this condition, but as I said, we have been speaking about amending or adopting new constitution in Armenia since 2018, I believe, so it is on our agenda. There is a commission. This commission was established long before the war, long before the negotiations or agreements. So this commission is already finalizing its work, and we're going to have most probably a referendum on this, but it will take place after the elections, parliamentary elections that we are going to have next summer. So I'm saying this to show that there are steps that we will be implementing in nearest future, coming days, coming months. There are steps that may be postponed.
But if you count the elections and things like that, then it's we're talking about years, right? At least a few years before the whole thing is
maybe a couple of years. But this is also important to state. We, the Armenian side, we are ready to sign the peace treaty immediately. Text is agreed, text is initial. We don't see any problem. We can sign it tomorrow.
Okay, coming back to the so-called Trump
route for international peace and prosperity.
As far as I understand, you already started discussions with the US side on that. You said that it's going to be a consortium that's going to build it. Who's going to manage it eventually? Territorially, the corridor is going to go through the Armenian territory to Nakhchivan, to Azerbaijan. But what will be the, I mean, let's say it's a politically sensitive issue. So how it's going to be managed and operated in your view, as you see it now?
Well, first of all, it's not a corridor. I know, I understand that saying transport corridor does not leave any maybe negative impression. These days everybody is in search for new logistic routes, etc. But it's not a corridor. And why I'm saying this, we had an impression, we had a belief that during the whole months and years of negotiations, the Azerbaijani side was trying to attach some signs, some attributes of extraterritorial corridor to this passage. For instance, they have been demanding to bring and deploy more, for instance, third-party forces along this railway. I remember they have been speaking about Russian troops being deployed, necessity of Russian troops to be deployed along the railway, which was unacceptable, of course, for us. And now there is no corridor. I mean, there is TRIP, which is Trump route for international peace and prosperity. And all the attributes of sovereignty and our national jurisdiction are acknowledged by Azerbaijan, also by the United States, over the territory, over the passage, over the infrastructure. So we don't have any extraterritorial corridor on our territory. It is also important to know that we don't speak about only this passage, only connecting main part of Azerbaijan with Nakhijevani Autonomous Republic. We speak about, and this is the agreement, to unblock all the transport communications, all the infrastructure between two countries. So we get access to Azerbaijani railway, for instance. Azerbaijan, the whole system, the whole chain. Azerbaijan gets access to our railway, like usual ordinary neighbors. You can pass through each other's territory. This is what's going to take place, and this is what is agreed. This should be governed, managed by Armenian-American consortium, which of course can hire subcontractors to deliver separate duties, services, etc. And those third companies should be selected by mutual consent.
Doesn't look like going to be Russian companies.
Why do you say so?
Because we're going to have a question about Russia.
No, a company which can be potentially selected should be approved by Armenia and America. Mm-hmm. We're open for cooperation with many countries. I'm not excluding anyone, but there are some certain countries, candidacies of which, can be potentially rejected.
Turkey, it looks very close. It is an important player in the region and so forth. If I understand correctly, the Armenian side is pretty much ready also to open communications across the border and so on and so forth. Looking at the media at least, it doesn't look like the Turkish side has made as many preparations than the Armenian side. What are your conversations now with the Turks?
Well, we do have quite an intense and...
the border infrastructure seems like to be very different. On the Armenian side, it's pretty much ready. On the Turkish side, not so much.
That's partially true, because we do have a very good dialogue with Turkey on many levels, starting from leaders, foreign ministers, special envoys, even technical teams. I'm not even speaking about ministries, different ministries, etc. So the whole dialogue has been taking place and now currently is taking place without any precondition. Saying so, our Turkish counterparts at the same time outlined that they can't finalize the process and open the borders and establish diplomatic relations before Armenian Azerbaijani normalization. Now it's done. The Armenian-Azerbaijani peace agreement is initialed. There is no argument about the text. I personally don't see any problem for opening of Armenian-Turkish border, Armenian-Turkish diplomatic relations, etc. This also, has been confirmed by our Turkish counterparts as well. They express, and then in reality they show readiness to open the borders, to have the Gümrük railway connection relaunched, to relaunch the bilateral direct trade, to not even speaking about establishment of diplomatic relations, etc. So my opinion is that we will have very tangible progress in this regard in coming weeks and months. It's a matter of, several months maximum. This is my perception. We will see.
The European Union has been a market, let's say, opening to the EU in terms of what the Armenian government is saying. And, let's say, statements about the intention to maybe join the EU. Also, Armenia is one of the three sort of preferred partners within the EU Eastern Partnership: Moldova, Ukraine, and Armenia. So I understand that there are issues, not so issues, but there is a desire to have less visa-free agreements with the EU, like Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova has. A friend of mine who's a diplomat, a Western diplomat, posted in Yerevan, said that Armenia is going probably to next year, in his view, submit an official request to join the EU and start the process. Is it true?
We have a law obliging the government of Armenia to have and implement a policy and to have as a goal the EU accession. So when we will be applying, I cannot be very sure, next month, next year. It's a matter depending on many factors. But as I said, this is our official policy. Meanwhile, not waiting for this official application or a response from EU, we have already started with the European Union a significant deepening of bilateral relations. We have SIPA agreement. We already started the visa facilitation process, and the impression is that this process is going quite well. We are negotiating over several new documents. We finalized the new partnership agenda. It's going to be signed in coming 2-3 maximum months. So many things are happening between Armenia and the European Union, and this is also interesting to note. We see a demand from citizens of Armenia to even go further. We see some criticism for possible delays and I don't know, long procedures, internal procedures, etc.
Do you think the visa-free arrangement, if it happens, so do you think it will happen within a year, 2 years? How long will it take, give or take?
It's difficult to make such an assumption, but one could say that 2 years is, from 1 to 2 years is quite a realistic timeline.
Now the big white elephant in the room is Russia. How is Moscow reacting to your future peace treaty with Azerbaijan, with overtures to the EU? They don't like it, no?
Maybe. I'm not excluding. Well, Russia is one of our main partners when it comes to trade, economy. We've been talking to a couple of minutes earlier to some possible EU measures and instruments to ease the access, for instance, for Armenian goods to EU markets. Now we are in the middle of diversifying our economic trade, energy contacts. Let's put it in this way. So there have been many issues on which Armenia and Russia have agreed. There have been, are still many issues on which Armenia and Russia do not agree. So in case of this peace arrangement, establishment of peace, also the connectivity, in case of these issues, what we saw is the welcoming statement by official Moscow, and also we saw the readiness expressed by high Russian officials to support, to participate in the connectivity projects, etc.
The Russian official sort of voices may be silent, but if you look at the Russian state TV, which is an instrument of the government, it's not very positive towards the peace treaty with Azerbaijan. It castigates both the Azerbaijan and Armenia, you represent Armenia, as essentially, turning your back on Russia. It's an extremely intense propaganda. So it seems like they're expressing the view of the government that looked at you before as a country that's very tightly connected to Russia, and now not anymore. Do you feel endangered by this? Looking at Ukraine, looking at the neighborhood?
Well, indeed, when you look at the media, not only media, officials as well, from time to time, members of their parliament, politicians, experts. So we see very often very heavy criticism towards Armenia, criticism of Armenian government, Armenian democracy, Armenian sovereign decisions, even personalities, Armenian leaders.
Yes, very much so.
And of course, this deepens the misunderstanding or gap, one can say, or I don't know, disagreement between Armenia and Russia. We have been kindly drawing attention of our Russian colleagues to this media attacks or I don't know, narrative or propaganda attacks
So
against
what did
Armenia.
they reply, the Russian colleagues?
Well, I don't think that the reply is satisfactory. As I said, those are our sovereign decisions. Democracy is our choice. Deepening relations with the European Union, with the United States, with whom we are strategic partners now, with the others, is our sovereign choice, sovereign decision. So either normal partners respect each other, including the decisions, or maybe that partnership needs some reforms, some refreshment.
That's true if you talk about sovereignty, and in the ideal world of international relations that should be so. But if you look at the connections that Armenia has, especially because it is a landlocked country, gas supplies from Russia going to Armenia, railway lines, Russian air base and the base in Gyumri, Russian influences in Armenia. There are, let's say, forces that say that the current government should basically forsake its current attitude. So Russia has a significant, let's say, instrumentarium to pressure Armenia, like, to put it in a very human terms. Are you afraid?
We are, of course, connected. Our economies are connected, energy systems are connected very much with Russia. You said that they are one of our main economic and trade partners. But also what we are saying is that we are diversifying almost everything, including trade and economy spheres and supply markets, etc. So there are indeed circles, including in Armenia, which continuously insist on, as they say, the necessity to become a very and emphasized pro-Russian government, which is, you know, here our stance is that this is an issue which should be decided by citizens of Armenia. And for this reason, for testing the public opinion and letting people to decide, there are elections. Our political party gained the majority of the voices. We got the support in the snap parliamentary elections in 2021, after quite a serious internal political crisis. Then continuously there have been several public opinion polls. Once even our prime minister said that democracy and deepening relations with EU is the belief of myself and our political party. And since we are the government, we will be implementing. If people disagree and they cannot wait for the next elections, they can go to the streets, organize protests and make a revolution. We won't create any artificial obstacle. As you can see, no revolution took place. This means also the silent support of the population, of our citizens. Well, even if this is not enough, we are having parliamentary elections next summer. So everybody in the world should respect the voice of and the decision of our citizens. Let them decide.
What we've seen recently is elections in Moldova, which were, I would say, very emotional, with accusations, counter-accusations of influence from the outside. In the age of social media, that's not that difficult. Are you preparing for this kind of significant outside interference, including from Russia, in the elections, looking at Moldova?
Well, we have been living in this very atmosphere. It's already several years. So we know how this machine works. We have seen many attempts of intervention by external actors, including probably and most importantly from where you mentioned. We'll see. These attempts probably will grow. We already spoke about the media sources heavily criticizing the Armenian government, Armenia's democracy, etc. We assume this may be increasing in coming months, but that's what we have.
Your government has been frequently accused by outsiders that, especially, let's say, Ukrainians, but also others, that it's not vocal enough in stating its position with regard to Russia's war against Ukraine. I suspect that what lots of actors in Central Europe, in the Baltics, in Ukraine, would like to hear from the government of Armenia is to say, this is aggression. So much more forceful attitude. Will it happen? Will it not? If not, why?
Well, the formulations that you used, with all due respect, are not quotations for foreign governments, you know. I don't remember any government, any Western, let's say, official approaching me, for instance, and saying, why are you saying this? Why are you not saying this, etc. We do have very good relations with our Ukrainian counterparts. So I just met my Ukrainian counterpart on the margins of Warsaw Security Summit. We discussed the potential or possible ways of deepening our bilateral relations. We discussed, and my friend and colleague, he welcomed the established peace in South Caucasus. We discussed the necessity of peace in Ukraine. So we provided our modest humanitarian support to children of Ukraine. So I mean, the problem that you spoke about may be a problem which is in the minds of representatives of media, expert circles, among officials, neither between Armenia and Ukraine, nor on this topic between Armenia and, let's say, United States, United Kingdom, EU member states. We don't have any of this.
Armenia as a country has this interesting specific that there are lots of Armenians, diaspora living in many, many countries of the globe, and it was always very tightly connected to Armenia. I do know that it's not part of your ministry's remit to deal with the diaspora. Still, as a member of the government, do you think that these people will be in the end on board with Armenia's new pro-European course, or the debates that sort of we see in Armenia? You said it yourself. There's opposition. There are people say we should turn the other way. Does it impact Armenian diaspora, and how it will impact Armenia then? Because there is a very tight connection.
Now there is in Armenia and in diaspora the debate about the foreign policy implemented by the government of Armenia, about the perception of many sensitive issues like the dilemma between historic Armenia and real Armenia. It's taking place in Armenia and especially in diaspora as well. But when it comes to diaspora, we should also understand several nuances. So there are several layers within diaspora. There are people who are now established. They have been established in diaspora for around, I don't know, the families, I mean, for 100 years. There are families which just left Armenia. There are traditional political circles in diaspora. There are new ones, so they all have different views. What unites them, with all due respect, we love them, they are our families, they have relatives in Armenia very often, etc. But with all due respect, the foreign policy of Republic of Armenia, as well as everything connected with political decisions in Republic of Armenia, should be made by citizens of Republic of Armenia. So literally, if anyone is not going to send his son or to come and serve in the, and this is very vivid example, but not limited to this, I mean, to serve in the army of Republic, the defense structures of the Republic of Armenia, probably it would be fair to restrict their, they should restrict themselves to have the right to make decisions regarding the future of Republic of Armenia.
Minister Ararat Mirzoyan, thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you.